This is Monocle on Fashion, a show on Monocle Radio dedicated to bringing you insider stories and global perspectives on the fashion industry. I'm Natalie Theodosi, Monocle's fashion director and your host. Today, we're talking about all things Fashion Week. Women's Fall-Winter 2025 shows are in full swing, with Copenhagen, New York, and London Fashion Weeks already behind us and Milan currently underway. One of the most interesting conversations that has been emerging this month, aside from the myriads of HR changes at the big luxury houses, has been about shifting dynamics, with some cities losing a bit of ground. There's significantly less talent and less shows to attend at cities like New York, Copenhagen, and London, the result of rising costs of living, Brexit, and designers' decision to reevaluate their place in the fashion ecosystem. Some are investing in more intimate, customer-centric events, while others are questioning the role of the fashion show altogether or migrating to Paris, where it's easier to cross paths with the most important players in the industry. Still, Fashion Week remains an important soft power exercise for cities like Copenhagen, New York, and London, an opportunity to host international visitors, highlight a city's creative talent, and create new business opportunities. It's why fashion professionals are trying to band together and discuss how to support local talent and revive their city's fashion weeks. In London, for one, Mayor Sadiq Khan made it to the front rows of some shows and supported the opening of a pop-up shop on Regent Street, which features items by some of the city's up-and-coming talent. To dissect everything that we've been seeing so far, I'm joined by Monocle's associate fashion editor, Grace Charlton, who is joining me on the month-long Fashion Week marathon, which started in Copenhagen in late January and has continued on to London and Milan. A little later, we have another special guest, the anonymous fashion critic known by the nickname Boringnotcom. Boring, an industry veteran, is known for sharp, refreshingly honest opinions about what we're seeing on the catwalks, but also what's going on behind the scenes. We discuss the reasons behind the decline of interest in New York and London Fashion Weeks, the brands still worth keeping an eye out for, and how the industry needs to be moving forward. But first, here's Grace Charlton.
Copenhagen Fashion Week is turning 20 next year, so it's starting to mature a little bit, but a lot of these bigger brands like Canny or Steen Goya, actually Steen Goya sort of returned to schedule this season, but some of the brands that they've championed for so long have left. So yeah, it definitely felt a little bit subdued just because I think the autumn-winter edition is always less lively than the amazing, Copenhagen and the summer one. But I thought the collections were quite strong. It's an interesting time for Copenhagen, and I see it in an almost similar way to London in the way that maybe it's smaller brands and it's an incubator, a platform to sort of push them onto the wider stage. How do you feel about Copenhagen?
It's interesting because I've been going for quite a few years, and it was the time when Ganni and Cecily Banson and Stine Goya really put the country and Copenhagen specifically on the map. So I can't imagine a Copenhagen Fashion Week without any of them. But at the same time, it means more space for the younger names. It just means that they really need to deliver to keep interest and to keep guests coming back. I don't know, did you have any of those younger names, new brands that really caught your eye and that you would recommend our listeners look into?
It's not a new brand, but they've got a new creative director. MKDT Studio I thought was outstanding. I really loved that. Another thing about Copenhagen actually is that their sustainability efforts is now being picked up by London and Berlin Fashion Week. So that's a nice feather in their hat, I guess.
Definitely. And I think that's one way where they've put themselves on the map. But I have to say that I think that sustainability is great, but you need to also be able to deliver excitement and really great design in order to draw people in.
Yeah, I was thinking about this in London after the Fashion Week, but I think what really sets London apart from somewhere like Copenhagen is having these schools like Central St. Martin's and London College of Fashion. And maybe Copenhagen could get more, if it had a bigger school, a more prestigious school like that, it could tie itself more to that. I don't know.
It's interesting you mentioned Central St. Martin's, and it's true for decades now. It's what really built London's reputation. And it's been known as the school that, trained John Galliano and Phoebe Philo and Stella McCartney, every big name pretty much that now works in the fashion industry. But some of the conversations that I've been having around dinner tables at London Fashion Week is that even that is changing a little bit, and I think it is tied to London's demise. I don't want to sound too negative, but
we live here, Natalie.
Yeah, I know, and we'll turn to the positive soon. But what I've been kind of talking to people about is that the University of Arts London, which includes Central St. Martin's and London College of Fashion, is becoming a lot more corporate. The fees are higher, the cost of living in London is much higher, so you don't get the caliber of talent that you used to. And also the education system and the way they are teaching students, again, is not the same. So you don't get as much talent coming out of the school or designers who are as willing to take the risk and start their own business. Is that something that you felt going around London Fashion Week or talking to people?
Definitely. I think there is it's crunch time for the fashion industry, and a lot of these brands were showing sort of more product-heavy collections. But quickly back on CSM, I think there was a lot of Gen Z angst coming out, which I really appreciated, actually. A lot of these collections with people in like reworked grey sweatpants, like, chomping down on an apple that says "I Heart London" or something. It was quite funny. But then I don't know, how do you feel about the bigger names in London and the more institutional houses that we've got here that you went to?
I think my experience with London Fashion Week is that there's less big names, as you call them, but the ones that have stayed and they have weathered their storm and they keep operating, they are really strong and they've put on great shows. I think Sunday was one of my favorite days. There's this kind of trifecta of shows: Simone Rocha, Emilia Wickstead, Roxanda Ilincic. And it's so interesting because the shows themselves, the collections are great, but I also love looking around at every show, and they really have, it's a small niche crowd, but you can see that they have these diehard fans who come dressed head to toe in their designs. With Roxanne, there's a lot of artists and architects dressed in like her very colorful architectural creations. With Simone, you get people dressed with like bows in their hair, very whimsical. And I think that's the way to go for London designers, to find a niche and to really focus on that and to build really close-knit relationships with the customer. So that's really interesting. And I think that gives me hope about London. But also there is a lot of young talent, or enough kind of up-and-coming talent to keep us going and to keep the interest still there. You went to some of those kind of young designer showcases. Tell me, what were your highlights?
I went to one show that was really fun. It was Denzel Patrick, and they had this concept that was sort of medieval meets Motorhead, like motorcycles, sort of. They had, it's really hard to describe, but they had almost like breastplates on their jumpers, and then they were carrying helmets, and the music was a little bit angsty as well. It's quite a young brand founded by Daniel Gale and James Bosley, and it seemed like they had a lot of fun, and that's what I loved about it.
Fun is a good word. I think more designers need to have fun. That's what Stephen Stocky Daly was talking about backstage as well. I think he's a really one to watch, and he's not that up and coming anymore. He's maturing. He's launched women's wear, and you can see him play around with archetypes of the British kind of wardrobe. He's using a lot of British fabrics and playing around with trench coats and the duffel coat, and the make and the quality of everything is quite sophisticated. I think he's working with a lot of local mills. He's adding accessories to his collection. So I was really kind of positively surprised when I went to his show, because you can see that this is a brand that's really on the rise and will keep bringing excitement to London.
Do you think he could be a potential Burberry creative director? Are we allowed to go into
That was the gossip on the front row, because there was quite a bit of check. There were trench coats on his collection. So some people were whispering backstage that he's auditioning for Burberry. So I think he could do really well, and he's young, so it could be a long tenure. I would hire him for sure. What do you think?
Wow, yeah, definitely. No, I agree. I think he's quite cool. I actually am one of the few people, I think, who really likes what Daniel Lee is doing at Burberry. And like you said in your column a few weeks ago, I feel like a lot of these creative directors who head up a house are barely given any time to really turn it around. I mean, we've seen a lot of people leave their appointments. I don't know. How do you feel about Burberry? What are your expectations?
I agree. I don't like to speculate as much and then say, oh, this person is definitely leaving or who's going to come on next, because it's all hearsay at the end of the day. But what I do believe is that there is more potential and a lot more excitement around Burberry at the moment. And there's a new CEO who came from Coach. He's American, Joshua Schulman. And the moment that he announced his strategy for the brand, which is a lot more focused on slightly more accessible price points, a lot more focused on the check and on core products. I mean, you also see the campaigns. They've brought it back to the family. It feels very British. It feels quite wholesome. And you see that the shares of the company just shot up straight away. So I think his strategy, in combination with the right creative director, that could be Daniel Lee as well, means that Burberry will recover finally, because we've been waiting for that for a long time. And that will hopefully also bring a lot of the international editors and the buyers who have stopped coming to London back to town to see the shows, buy the collections, and while they're here, also discover the new talent. So I know I was a bit negative at the beginning, but it's not all doom and gloom, and there is a future for London Fashion Week. Anything else that you are looking forward to? We're getting ready for Paris, so tell me what's kind of on the horizon for the next week. What are you looking forward to?
I'm always excited to see. It's quite obvious, but I'm always excited to see the row. I find that the way they just style clothes on the runway is really inspirational in terms of what I actually own in my day-to-day wardrobe, which is weird, right? Because they're like hyper luxury. But I just find those shows always really inspirational. And otherwise, you know, the usual like Miu Miu, Chanel, Dior. It's always fun to keep up with the big houses, even though, you know, they're well beyond my price range. What about you?
We need to go for a coffee at the new Rose store in Paris. I think that is highly recommended, and it's nice to be in Paris and do that around the shows. And the new creative director at Dries Van Noten will also be making his debut. So I'm very excited to see how he interprets Dries's work, what he's going to have to say backstage. That's an interview that I'm really looking forward to as well. So more on the show very soon. That was Grace Charlton, Monocle's associate fashion editor. And now, Boringnotcom on their own highlights from New York, London, and beyond.
I feel like New York Fashion Week just came and went really fast without any excitement about it. It started to feel very much like London. The excitement for that new energy is just not even there anymore. There isn't any new like designers that I'm really hungry for to see their shutters right now. New York is so expensive now, and like they're not really nurturing their designers anymore. But I thought that's what the whole point of like the TFDA and all of that, to help the designers, you know, help them fund their brands and stuff. But it just felt really dead, and it started to feel like London Fashion Week, which I'm really worried about. The only designer right now that really caught my attention was right at the end, which was Tom Brown's show. I thought that show was so beautiful. It was so romantic. The way it was just done from start to finish, he executed it so great. I'm looking forward to next season and how grows from this collection. I'm surprised it's not be shown in Paris, to be honest, because there's not much in New York. And I feel like his stuff is more suitable for Paris, but obviously he wants this famous hometown, which kind of makes sense as well. But I would love to see some like that energy of new designers again in New York.
I mean, what I'm hearing is two things that I've been thinking about a lot as well. That first, there's this lack of experimentation, and designers really, even the young ones that are at the stage where they should be experimenting, that they're playing it a lot more safe. Right. But also, there's not. I mean, looking at a New York Fashion Week, which happened throughout it's like a full week, but you could name 2 to 3 young designers that you are keeping an eye on that are promising. Why do you think? I mean, you mentioned the cost of living in New York. Is there other factors as well that have led to this, that we're lacking new design talent and people that are really getting creative with their designs?
I feel like money, it usually comes down to money, first of all. And we've gone through like the past 5 to 10 years of people just imitating each other. So the inspiration, people don't want to like do the research. They just want to go on Instagram and just grab the latest Phoebe Philo collection and then like water it down in the same way, thinking that it's going to be cool, and then shoot it like the way Demna would shoot it, and then that's their collection. Even on YouTube right now, and I feel like it's quite fascinating, that have been recommending a lot of new designers. I call them t-shirt designers. They just do the t-shirt with a logo and then the hoodie, and then they call themselves a designer. Personally, I don't feel like that's being a designer. I feel like you're just selling much, but people just easily or quickly call themselves a designer, not even like knowing how to, the ins and outs of being a designer. I mean, you don't have to learn how to pattern cut, but you need to add the basics and understand them. But nowadays, I feel like people just think that, oh yeah, I can just make some jeans, a t-shirt and a hoodie with a nice look that I sell it. And it's true in certain points, because there are those brands that do that and they do become successful. But let's be honest, that kind of, after a while, doesn't last for very long. If the brand doesn't build this storytelling behind it, it kind of fades very quickly. And there's so many brands that had faded so quickly. I mean, look at Virgil's Off-White, which was a huge thing in the fashion world. And it was really exciting times. And unfortunately, like, the fashion community lost him, and his brand didn't have enough time to build that kind of story behind it. So as soon as he's gone, the brand feels like it's just tumbling down. No one even talks about Off-White anymore.
The narrative in London for so long is that it is the home of the best fashion schools in the world, especially when it comes to Central St. Martin's. It's where, the John Gallianos and the Alexander McQueens of the world all started. But do you find that the influence of St. Martin's, maybe because of post-Brexit, the fees are so much higher, it's waning a little bit, or it's changing?
No, if it has changed. We all know it. Like, St. Martin's is a good school. Not going to lie, that campus is beautiful. Like, there's no hate to St. Martin's if you're listening to this, or any other learning college. But St. Martin's is not what it used to be. The St. Martin's of Louise Wilson days were at different times. And she taught in a different way. And she really didn't baby anyone in any way. It's like she told people how it is. And also times have changed as well, where you don't need to go to St. Martin's to make it. Because of Instagram and the internet, it's evolved so much now that you don't need to go to school anymore. I personally, if I was a student, if I was choosing to go to St. Martin's or go to learn in Savile Row, I will probably just go and work at Savile Row for like 3 years. But to be like what McQueen did, he worked at Savile Row. That's why his tailoring is so, oh my gosh, like impeccable. It's like his tailoring was so good. That's why his clothes were so beautiful.
Yeah, I think more students and more young people should hone these skills and kind of become more artisans versus creative directors and designers. When you look at the London Fashion Week schedule for this season, is there anybody that you do have your eye on that you are kind of excited to either attend the show or follow the collection and the trajectory of that designer? Any names that you can recommend?
This season, no, unfortunately, he's not showing. And that is standing ground. I think he is so talented. But when I see his clothes, I just melt. Like, I think the fabric choices, the cut, like the colors, he's so talented. I'm just like, wow. And usually when I see that, I just know. And I hope that he gets the support that he needs. I don't know if he is. That might be a reason why he's not showing this season, or maybe a personal reason, but really is someone to watch. And I would love for him to get a position at a brand. But actually, before he does that, I really want him to grow as a designer and see how he develops his vision a bit more.
Yeah, and for listeners who might not know, it's a brand kind of focused on gowns, right? A really sculptural silhouettes, nominated for an LVMH prize as well, which was very well deserved. So London, I mean, there's a lot of those younger independent names. And you mentioned that a lot of the troubles started when all those dramatic changes were happening under Riccardo Tisci, which he changed the logo, he changed the stores, complete change of direction. And if we look at kind of the broader picture, do you think that that's not a formula that works anymore, where one creative director comes in and he's given multi-million euro budgets to completely wipe out everything, and that we're moving into a time when it's a lot more about the brand and these designers following stricter briefs and having a bit less of an ego, maybe? What do you think?
I think the Burberry situation, it was a big wake-up call for people, and if it wasn't, they better wake up. I remember even Diesel do something similar as well when Nicola was made creative director, where they just injected so much money into the brand, and with like promotion and marketing and all of that. Like when Ricardo went there, it was just like, hey, just do whatever you want. And overnight, we just saw the brand change from this rock star thing to this streetwear kind of brand. And it was just, you need time to slowly adjust. I don't mind a designer changing into their vision, but don't give me a 24-hour like adjustment. Like, please just slowly like get us to a point where the customer will be ready to move into your vision. I would say give it 2 seasons. So use those 2 seasons to slowly transition the brand. Do you remember the orange logo and the bags, the logos, the print on the bag? Oh my gosh, like I'm getting a headache just thinking about.
So evolution of a revolution for the next set of creative directors.
Yeah. Definitely the next set of creative directors, they need to have a bit more control. And I feel like brands are doing that now.
Yeah. And I mean, we are going to be looking at a lot of collections as the European shows begin. Some debuts, some studio collections as we wait for Gucci and Chanel and all these brands to present the new direction. But I think that has also created a lot of confusion when it comes to fashion criticism, right? You've been doing a great job kind of expressing your opinions, I think in an elegant but still quite sharp way, but there's still very unclear direction about the future of fashion criticism. Tell me what you think about all that and what is the direction that we should be going towards.
I started this because I was feeling frustrated, and I just felt like everything felt very cut and paste and everyone was doing the same thing. And I just wanted to have an opinion that was really just for me. And I feel like you can be a company, make money from advertising, and still have a voice. You can say that you don't like something, and you can like something. Like, I feel like I will give like a rating to a show, and then I'll be able to break it down why I didn't like it. And I try to sometimes even include what I liked about the show. So you can have a balance of like and hate, and people just usually just home in on any of the things that you hate, and which is not healthy. And I'm using hate as a more dramatic word because I don't hate anything. And people don't tend to want to focus on the positive stuff that I post. They only think, oh my gosh, like they said that they don't like beers and they hate beers and blah, blah, blah. But it's not about that. For me, it's about having a nice balance of an opinion, a true balance about an opinion, and not just saying something that's good or going around their circles trying to find a way of saying it's good, but deep down you know it's not.
Absolutely. And I think I like the idea of a balanced opinion, even if it's not the most sensationalist approach to doing it and to attracting clicks and likes. There is value to balance. And I think there's also a lot of value. You made another really good point about, following the evolution of a brand, not just jumping on the story of a young designer for 1 or 2 seasons and then getting bored and moving on to the next talent, but really supporting them season after season. Is that something that the fashion press is guilty of and that needs to change as well?
I feel like London designers, they're like kind of prisoners to that, because like they just champion them, like place them for like a season or 2. They're like the buzzword. I remember like Gareth Pugh was like, oh my gosh, like the buzzword, and now it's like gone. Christopher Kane, luckily Christopher now is like, he's just doing his thing now, and I feel like he's gonna find a way back, because I've seen him slowly figuring certain things out. He did a collaboration with the portrait, which I feel like that's kind of the interesting take and a way of him going, and I'm really looking forward to him doing more. I feel like designers really have to be their own champion these days, because if you're going to rely on just the fashion councils, then you might be in trouble. You really have to build your own community and let them know what you're doing. Like people really want to be nosy nowadays. So you just try and figure out how you're going to do that. Don't follow the normal way of doing marketing than how it's been done for the past 50 years. Because as you can see, things are changing. AI, everything is changing. And it's very important to push your brand.
That was Boringnotcom, the industry's elusive critic. And that's all for today's show. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. We have more big interviews and Fashion Week briefings coming from next week. Today's episode was produced and edited by Steph Chungu and Lily Austin. I'm Natsli Theodosi. Thank you so much for listening.